Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Canola, and welcome back once again to another edition of the Movie Battleground. And we are back here once again with our 2022 tournament. This is the first matchup of the four semifinal matches, quarterfinal. Quarterfinal. I know how a tournament works. These are the first of the quarterfinal matches. We are down to the final 8 competitors in this tournament vying to become the first number one contender of next year's Battleground. And we have two big ones tonight. We have in the number 1 seed, Chad Danger Webb, who took out Alejandro Hernandez to move into the next round. And on the other side, we have the number 9 seed, Jay Burnz, who took out Jordan Owens in the first round to move into this. Both of these guys are highly valued amongst people within the community as competitors. No joke, I'm fairly certain that whoever wins this matchup tonight on every single bracket prediction we had, with the exception of one, was predicted to at least make it to the finals. And I'd say over half of them predicted one of these two guys to win the whole thing. So for a lot of people, this is a big matchup that they are looking for, as the winner of this match could be the real threat of the tournament. With that said, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to the competitors. Introducing first, coming in at the number 9 seed, he carries a record of 4 wins, 2 defeats, and 1 knockout. He is Jay, the Arsonist Burnz. Jay, welcome back to the Battleground, sir. How are you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling fine, but I know why I have user down. It's because you have 85 seconds worth of intros that nobody's going to watch. Plus, you got to skip through. My thumb's already tired thinking of hitting that button like 8 times. Just getting that fucking right out the way. No, I'm here to have a good time. I didn't know that Chad was rated that
My
fucking
views are
high.
up. Fuck you, bitch.
Okay, great for you. You went from 3 to 4. Oh, and it's only because I'm here. You fucking cuck. No, I'm glad to be here. I have prepared about as little as I have prepared for most of my matches. But if I can bullshit my way through a match with Henry, or I can bullshit my way through a match with Rue, or I can bullshit my way through a match with Jeremy the Adam Adams. Chad's got a funny accent and he talks. He's like 2/3 of the people that I play trivia against. Okay, so you're good at trivia. Are you good at bullshitting? I don't fucking know. We'll find out. Apparently you're good enough to be the number 1 contender, but guess what? I was the number 1 contender too, motherfucker. So, like, it is what it is. I can't wait to see what happens, actually. This is gonna be fun.
Just again, I want to throw out there, just because it makes me feel good. List of people he didn't beat. This guy. We're going to go ahead and put you in the back.
I beat you on the important question, which is, what is the best teacher in all of movies? You fucking asshole. Yoda is the only correct answer. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, I agreed with you before we played that match. So go ahead and put you in the back, man. Bring in your opponent. With a record of 6 wins, 2 defeats, he is Chad Danger Webb. Chad, welcome back, sir. Coming in off of a great win in the first round. How are you feeling tonight heading into this?
I'm feeling pretty good. I've never played Jay in debate. Obviously, he's a big personality. He, like he said, he loves to bullshit. He loves to just be loud, and one time he put it flamboyant and just kind of go out and stir shit up. So we'll see how my style goes up against his style. I love when I face somebody new, and then it's like, I've never faced you before, so I don't know how necessarily how to approach you, but we'll find out, I guess.
We absolutely will. So, because apparently I spent 85 seconds of intro, thanks for making me self-conscious, Jay. I'm just going to go ahead and bring him in, and we'll go ahead.
Anytime, buddy.
We'll move into this. Movie Battleground is a game that is a best of 5 rounds. It is the first of 3 points wins the match. Each round is going to be worth 1 point. If a competitor takes the first 3 points in a row, that will be a victory by knockout. If at the end of these we have a 2-2 tie, I do have a blind round question prepped, so we will go to that to decide the winner. In terms of the 4 questions these guys were given, they have had as much time as I can give them to prep. They used as much of it as they chose to. 60 seconds will open the round, followed by 2 minutes each to expand on their choice. A 4-minute open discussion will then take place, followed by 60 seconds each to close the round out. Following that, I have 3 judges backstage in the form of Malcolm Lay, Richie Goodacre, and Jake Reese. They will join us on screen, at which point they will make a decision based on what was said in the arguments. With that said, guys, we ready to go?
Clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose.
All right, let's go ahead.
Thing. Catchphrase.
Well said. Let's go ahead and go. Speaking of catchphrase, you want to know where the line catchphrase was used recently? Last year in a movie called Free Guy, which was about a video game. And that's one of the closest movies we've had to being good about video games. Let's talk about bad ones. The question is, what's the worst video game film released in the 2000s? Now, behind the scenes, Chad, you like that segue? I tried. With that said, Chad, because you were the number one seed, you have the choice of whether to go first or second on which questions. You chose to go first on 1 and 3. Jay, you'll get that chance on 2 and 4. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the timer in for you guys. I'm going to wish you both the best of luck on a great match, and I will hide behind the scenes. Chad, when you are ready.
I picked 2005's Alone in the Dark. Alone in the Dark tries to be a serious horror and sci-fi blend, but it really fails at executing either well at all. It's not scary, and the sci-fi elements are convoluted and thrown at you like a textbook via words on the screen and an overuse of narration. The acting performances are laughable, juxtaposed with the serious tone of the film. The times when the movie tries to be scary or have a cool action sequence, you can barely see anything due to the poor lighting and bad effects. Alone in the Dark was directed by Uwe Boll, which explains a lot, but also it's the lowest rated film on Rotten Tomatoes. I normally don't like to bring that site up, but this being rated 1% is very damning. Literally nobody who has seen this has a good thing to say about it. Not only that, but the fact that this video game has inspired the film, supposedly invented the survivalist horror genre of video games. I think the game deserves a better film adaptation. Maybe one day somebody will give it some justice. Until then, we have this piece of shit we'd rather just forget. Alone in the Dark is the worst of the 2000s.
All right, and that is time. I do apologize for this slight internet blip on my end there. With that said, Jay, we'll go back over to you. You have 1 minute on the clock when ready.
I obviously chose another movie from the mid-2000s that had so much potential, and it just fell so flat. I am talking about the fighting platform game DOA, Dead or Alive. You want to talk about something that has a storyline to it that you can actually follow and is engaging in the video games, and when you try to translate it to the screen, it just does not work. It comes in the realm of DOA, Dead or Alive. Eric Roberts never should have been the bad guy. This movie is full of camp. There is a little bit of fan service in it, but it's cringy when it gets to that point. That's just not something that translates well, and it's one of the reasons why this is the worst. Not just one of the worst video game movies of the mid-2000s, but one of the worst movies of the 2000s. The choreography in this movie is bad. The acting in this movie is bad. The plot of this movie just makes no sense. And I'm fine with sorry, it looked like the timer froze. It looked like the timer froze. I'm done, but that threw me off there for a second.
Did that in mine as well.
I wasn't.
No, you're all good. That was my fault. I didn't close down everything I needed to make sure my internet didn't jump. So we were doing that while you guys were talking. With that said, though, we're gonna go on to the 2-minute segment. Chad, over to you. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Yeah, I mean, Alone in the Dark is also considered one of the worst films ever made by lots of sources. Alone in the Dark begins with a 2-minute scrawl of text on the screen that lets you know exactly what this movie is, an exposition dump. Then it goes on to have the rest of the story told through narration. It's nonsensical, and you don't care about the story or the characters. Christian Slater is actually a good actor, which is a shame to see him being so underused in this. I actually really love him in Mr. Robot. Tara Reid is not at all believable as an intelligent scientist to co-lead the film. Like I said, the horror is bad, the sci-fi is bad. It's the worst of both worlds. Many people consider this one of the worst films. I already said that. There's no moment where you go, oh, hey, remember this great moment in Alone at the Dark? At least it has that. It doesn't. It's devoid of any sense of fun or tension. So it's not a good movie, or it's not a good bad movie either. I wish they would have stuck with the original game story about the mansion owner who killed himself and an investigator who goes to check it out. We could have got a cool Die Hard in a mansion horror movie. That would have been really awesome. DOA, Dead or Alive, is actually kind of fun. No, it's not good. Jay's right about a lot of it, but it's still campy, it's silly, and it gives you exactly what it promises: fights. It's based off of a fighting game, so it really doesn't have to, do any much more than that. The choreography is good, so it's fun to watch. The acting is silly as hell, at least from the side characters, and the girls who are fighting are pretty badass. The way they act and fight men is pretty cool too. There's a scene where one girl takes out an entire ninja army, and it's pretty cool. There's a scene where one girl takes out I already said that. Jamie Presley is a really fun actress. I love her in My Name is Earl and Joe Dirt. And she's really great here. She makes a pretty fun lead. And if DOA were trying to be some serious movie with the writing it has and the acting it has, then it would be terrible. But since it knows what it is and knows who the audience is, I think it really works as a movie you can have fun with. And it also actually has a cult following, and people who like the games probably really like this one.
And time. All right, Jay, back over to you, sir. 2 minutes on the clock when you're ready.
I actually touched a little bit on this in my opening statement. A lot of the reasons why this movie has a quote-unquote cult following is because of the fan service that not only the games present, but the movie also prevents. It's attractive ladies and Kevin Nash wearing skimpy outfits. That's not necessarily, that doesn't make a good movie. That actually makes the movie worse because all they're using is sex to sell the movie. It's bad because the storyline of the video games actually is in depth as hell. That's why there are 7 of them. And when you sat here in your opening statement or in your 2 minutes, you said, oh, if they wanted to make a serious Dead or Alive movie, it would have been bad. They've made several serious Dead or Alive movies. They just happen to be animated. And the fact of the matter is those animated ones were good. But when you translate a video game into a live action scene, especially when a lot of it takes place during a fighting tournament, it doesn't work if you don't have a lot of people who are trained martial artists, and they didn't do that. So they made bad decisions when it came to casting. They made bad decisions when it came to the plot because that plot is unfollowable. Yeah, your movie was directed by Uwe Boll. Don't get me wrong. That's not saying a whole lot. That is might be the worst point that you have besides Tara Reid was a bad archaeologist, but Tara Reid is a bad actress as well. That movie is still entertaining as fuck. Your issue with it was there are a lot of things that you can't see in this movie. What's the name of your movie again, Chad? Your movie is called Alone in the Dark. It's still brighter than that episode of Game of Thrones in season 8. I don't really care what it is that you have to say about it because your movie is actually entertaining. Is it lowly rated? Yeah, but there are a lot of lowly rated movies that people hold dear to them. Alone in the Dark is one for me, and I will argue against that in our 5 minutes when we get to it here in a second. But Dead or Alive is worse because it takes such prime material and shits all the fuck over it.
And time. All right, we're going to go ahead and get into the 4-minute open discussion. As a reminder to the competitors, be courteous, but also fight for your time. Have a good back and forth. Yes, sir. With that said, time starts when you begin speaking.
I'm not saying that you can't make a good version of either of these. You said that they've made Dead or Alive versions that are kind of better. They actually had a Alone in the Dark version that was written that was pretty good and stayed true to the actual original game. And then Uwe Boll came in with his creative team, took a giant shit over that, and then it just got worse and worse and worse. I'd rather have a movie that's just about a bunch of hot girls fighting each other in really fun, cool ways, rather than a movie that's just Christian Slater taking his shirt off and just narrating the whole fucking movie. And it's just really boring as hell. I don't understand how you say this is fun.
This movie is actually incredibly entertaining. Whereas the fight scenes in my movie are boring as fuck. Why? Because it's blocky. All of the kicks, all of the punches are slow, and it looks like everybody's stepping into it like they're just rehearsing their choreography on camera. And they're like, you know what? That was good enough. We'll go ahead. We'll print that for the day. We're done here. Let's move on to the next scene. Hey, Diesel, are you ready? Yeah, you guys got 3 scenes. You got all 7 of your fucking words?
So I got you. But look. The thing about it is, when when yours tries to have an actual story, it keeps all that really short, and then it gets to the next fight. And I think that's really great because it keeps for the pacing. For mine, it just gets really, really bogged down in these long narration pieces of exposition dumps and talking to this guy, talking to that guy. And when the next time you actually get to when you try to get to like a CGI like character horror thing,
all movies are exposition. All movies are exposition dumps.
Not all movies, no. Some do it really effectively.
You can say they do it effectively all you want, but they're all exposition dumps. All Tarantino does is dump exposition on people's heads and hides it behind witty dialogue.
But he does it well, when he does it. But this is just
I'm not saying that your movie is Tarantino. I'm not saying that your movie is Tarantino-esque. But at the exact same point in time, I will concede that point. I don't really think that that's a point necessary of concession. But the thing that I like to point out is one of the main characters of this movie is the best ninja in this franchise, and he gets captured by Eric fucking Roberts. Hayate is such a good ninja that he's got his own version of games, not fighting games. Ninja Gaiden. That Hayate is the Hayate from the Dead or Alive games. Ayane, the purple-haired ninja, or Kunoichi, sorry, she's a female, and Kasumi are also a part of that franchise. Do we have any of that backstory? Absolutely not. What do we have? We have Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball thrown on screen, and that's not a fighting game. Both
of these movies are disappointing for some reason, but you said it yourself. DOA has a lot of fan service. There's a lot of things that fans would actually really
and if it was done well, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
It's much higher rated than mine is. Mine, nobody likes. You said it's enjoyable, but how? Like, it's just not. There's like no actual scenes where
because I played the video game like I've played most of the Dead or Alive games. The only Dead or Alive game I haven't played is Dead or Alive 6, which came out a couple of years ago. But I've played everything that was leading up to this, and the game that came out right after, which was DOA 5. All of them have an entertaining story. You know what Dead or Alive DOA doesn't? That. At least.
Go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
We're talking about like early mid-2000s video game movies. Yeah. We're talking about some of the worst movies, but I'm arguing that mine is actually really fun. There's a lot of really fun choreography and fight scenes, and mine is just a giant exposition dump for most of the movie.
And time. All right,
was that we're 4 or 5 minutes?
It was 4.
Oh, I thought, did we? I'm sorry. I'm not trying to step on toes. Did we change that? I thought it was 5 usually.
No, it's 4.
Okay. I was just curious. I was like, I saw the 4 on the screen. I thought we got 5.
No, you're good. Yeah, it's 4. The 5 was the exhibition you played where it was 3 of you.
Oh, I got you. I'm picking up what you're laying down.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go on to the 1-minute closing. Chad, you are back up first. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
I know my opponent really likes the Dead or Alive series. They're probably really great, but it's mostly a fighting series, and that's exactly what it gives you. I don't think the expectations are that high. The video game movie that I chose is based off of one that created the survivalist horror franchise. It's getting a new game coming out soon, and it could have had a really great start for a great movie here, a great horror survivalist movie. Instead, now I think it's just a bunch of like straight to DVD stuff. It could have been a franchise that's really great, that's beloved. Instead, we just get so much exposition, terrible acting. Christian Slater is actually a good actor, and he's just so wooden and boring in this, and it just drones on and on. And even when we get a hint of a horror thing, someone getting killed, or like guns, it's so darkly lit. I know it's called Alone in the Dark, but you should still be able to see a little bit of it. I don't care about the Game of Thrones comparison. They're both really bad at the end.
And time.
It was funny, though. I saw you crack up.
All right. We're going into your final minute, Jay. Time starts and you begin speaking.
All right. Corey Yen did something that I thought only Uwe Boll was possible. Like, it was only possible for Uwe Boll to do. Create a boring as fuck video game movie. Whereas most of Uwe Boll's oeuvre is fucking terrible. Uwe at least took a little bit of a shot in the dark, trying to create something that was actually memorable. My opponent's biggest fucking issue with it is that it's full of exposition dumps, and one of the 2 characters in this movie is bad. every character in my movie is bad. The plot doesn't make fucking sense. The acting, the fighting, the choreography in this movie is bad. The overarching story involved in my film is terrible. I have pointed this out to you in my argument, in my opening, in my 2 minutes, and that freeform. The only thing I've heard is Christian Slater looks like, which is Christian Slater from the 2000s. Tara Reid is a bad actress. We all knew that. At least they did something, or they tried to do something. Dead or Alive didn't. They tried to play off sex.
And time. All right. Great opening fight, guys. I'm going to go ahead and put you guys both in the back and bring in the judges for this. So I do have just a couple of quick fact checks here. It was brought up, Alone in the Dark does have a 1% on Rotten Tomatoes. One person gave it a positive review. For my own sheer enjoyment, I'm going to shout out that one person. Her name is Michelle Alexandria. She worked for something called Eclipse Magazine, and her consensus on Rotten Tomatoes says, Alone in the Dark isn't going to set the world on fire, but it largely succeeds with what it has to work with. Just don't take it seriously, and you'll have a fun time. Kudos to you for being the only person who said that. With that said, Dead and Alive is a game franchise. It was brought up that it is well respected. That is 100% correct. Looking at the critic reviews for the games, on average, it tends to fall somewhere at about an 8 out of 10 or 80%, depending on the metric that you're using to rate the games. Only one game in the series has got a bad review at all, and that is Dead or Alive Extreme 2, which came in at about a 50% approval rating on different sites. And apparently there's 4 different versions of Dead or Alive 5. I don't know anything about the series. That's just what I'm reading in front of me. Alone in the Dark did have an insane production issue when it did come to the script. Writer Blair Erickson was the original writer for the script, and he came up with what in his eyes was taking the premise of Alone in the Dark as a game and making it a more realistic film, basing it on concepts that in other types of films that covered the idea of exploring the paranormal. He also compared it to being inspired by H.P. Lovecraft in terms of how to go about doing the creatures. To give a quote, he said, "Thankfully, Dr. Bull was able to hire his loyal team of hacks to crank out something much better than our story and add in all sorts of terrifying horror movie essentials like opening gateways to alternate dimensions, bimbo blonde archaeologists, sex scenes, so on and so forth." I'm not going to keep reading it. It's a very, very long quote. He speaks very highly of Mr. Bull. And with that said, films are mostly exposition. That is actually 100% true. Exposition is the framework of a film. If you don't have exposition to explain what the fuck is going on, then you can't really have much of a film. However, it is widely known that there are good ways to do it and bad ways to do it. However, that was not fully up for debate here, although I'm sure neither film succeeded at that. They are arguing for worst film of the genre. That said, Malcolm, I'm going to go up to you, sir. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Yeah, this was a very tough debate, but ultimately, like I did go with Jay in the end there. I just heard more from Jay about why the Dead or Alive movie wasn't that good and all that. I just didn't hear much from Chad about why Alone in the Dark was bad, other than you've all directed it. So.
Okay, Richie, I'm going to go over to you next for the same thing.
Yeah, I'm in sort of the same mindset as Malcolm here. I think I think Chad got too hung up on the exposition. I wanted to hear more as to why this movie didn't succeed. I heard more from Jay why this movie was bad. You know, from the acting, from the choreography, yeah, from the actual story to how it kind of doesn't do the games justice. So yeah, I ultimately went with Jay here.
All right. Well, judges, thank you guys so much. I'll go ahead and sit you in the back and bring the competitors back in as we are going to go ahead and move on to question number 2.
You brought up Uwe Boll, bro. I thought you had me. I'm not going to lie. Sorry, buddy. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was like, fuck, I forgot Uwe Boll directed that shit.
Uwe Boll is half of the video game genre somehow. That man
really is.
That man still keeps just chucking away making movies.
I will say
this,
House of the Dead is by far probably Uwe Boll's best video game movie outside of Postal. But nobody but me and like 11 and a half other people have ever seen Postal.
I've never seen it, but I've heard of it. So
call
25%.
Post 9/11, killing Osama bin Laden. It's great, dude. It's great.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to question number 2. I don't know how much insanity this question will bring, but I won't take the blame or credit for it because I didn't write it. This was a viewer-submitted question sent in to us by a viewer, player, or judge of the show. And what's actually exciting is, coincidentally, they happen to be here right now. It is a question that was sent in by one of the 3 judges backstage.
Is it
so
taters?
The question... No, it was not.
Fuck. I was actually going to give him props for it.
Who was submitted to us by Malcolm Lay. The question is, which Marvel Cinematic Universe television show would have been better off as a movie? That has been the big discussion around these shows, for different varying reasons, but a lot of people have contended that they would have just been better off being movies instead of shows. And while I myself have enjoyed a majority of them, and I think a lot of people have found enjoyment in them, even if they're not the best shows, we are going to argue succinctly which is the one that should have been a movie. It is a great question. That's why it's here right now. With that said, Jay, we're going to go down to you, so I'll give you the timer. When you are ready, your time starts.
Now the question is which MCU TV show? So we're not talking like Daredevil, The Punisher, Jessica Jones, any of that shit. We're talking post-Infinity War, post-Endgame TV show. So Loki, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and my choice, Moon Knight. I think Moon Knight made the wrong decision of being a show that decided to come out in as many segments as it did. I know it's still a short show, but I think a majority of everything it is that Moon Knight does could have been condensed down into like a 2-hour movie. The waning attention span of Marvel fans, they're not going to come in every week, and they're not going to watch a show like this. A lot of people complain, and I think that this show, especially a show like this, would have benefited. Moon Knight would have benefited by being a movie instead of being a TV show. I'm going to get into a little bit of what I think about my opponent's show later.
And time. All right. Speaking of that opponent show, Chad, 1 minute on the clock. When ready.
The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is my choice, and that should have been a movie instead of a TV show. It has a fantastic concept with Sam Wilson's struggle with becoming Captain America. He can't become the Cap that Steve Rogers wanted him to because it's different for him. How can he represent an America that treats people that look like him like trash? How can he reconcile the dual identity of being a black man in America and being a representative of America? These are great questions to ask, and they don't do a good job in the show of explaining it. The growth Sam sees in the show isn't earned. Instead of focusing on Sam Wilson, the middle of the show is mostly about other things, taking away from the core point, showing that we really don't need all of that time when the focus should be smaller. I want to see the movie this show should have been that's tight and gives us the great Sam character development where we see him become his own kind of Captain America. It's not just the suit, it's the ideals and the strengths that only Sam Wilson can possess.
And time. And I just want to take a moment to say, fuck you, Marvel haters. In our world, She-Hulk is still a show that exists. Maybe not, I don't know. But with that said, Jay, we're going to go back over to you. You got 2 minutes on the clock when ready.
I think one of the great things that Moon Knight does as a TV show is introduce a good villain who could have been better in a more condensed and more concise area. I think that Ethan Hawke does an amazing job as the villain in this show. I think that Oscar Isaac does a great job playing the split personalities that he plays. And to tell you the truth, I think that they spend almost a little bit too much time on it, which would have been better had they had the constraint of a 2-hour movie. Most of the show, a lot of the show is filler. A lot of the show is what if. I'm not talking like what if the Marvel. It's, oh, well, but what if because I'm a vegan in this body, or like there are a lot of funny scenes in this show that definitely could have been cut due to time. I think that the better portion of this show would be to establish what Moon Knight is, which is the avatar of the god Khonshu. The show or the movie would be easier to show that relationship between the god, the deceptive nature of the god itself, of Khonshu themselves, to create this essentially perfect avatar, and it's a symbiotic relationship. They both gain something out of it. I don't need a 6 to 9 episode TV show to explain all of this. I 20 seconds exposition dump, as Uwe Boll doesn't like to do from our last one, would have been better. I think that Falcon and the Winter Soldier actually needed to be a longer TV show. I don't think the Falcon and the Winter Soldier works as a movie because you're asking for something that you've already gotten. We're asking for something that we haven't gotten here to be less erudite, less talkative, and more show. That's what I think, and that's why I think that Moon Knight would work as a film more than a TV show.
Erudite, that's an SAT word, kids. Chad, I'm going to go back over to you. Time starts when you begin speaking, sir.
Sam Wilson is supposed to be the focus of the story, but the show often sidelines him. In fact, the third episode is barely about Sam and his journey at all. It's just a bunch of nonsense about getting Zemo to help them find the power broker, to learn about the super soldier serum, and the flag smashers took. Episode 3 and 4 really don't have anything to do with the main concept. Why not cut out Zemo, the power broker, the Dora Milaje entirely? You can still have John Walker and the flag smashers as the main threat, where Sam sees what happens when the Cap shield ends up in the wrong hands. But focus on showing the progression and development of Sam as a character, learning how he can merge the two sides of him so that they aren't really mutually exclusive. He can be a proud, unapologetic black man who challenges authority and the system to make things better for the disenfranchised while also helping to make citizens safe. When he addresses authority in the end of the show, that was a baller Captain America moment where he merges his identity as a black man and as Captain America together to show how he is distinct from Steve Rogers, but not in a bad way. Give me a good movie where this is done in a tighter, more focused way so it feels earned. Make it a movie that would have brought it to a larger audience as well. Moon Knight is perfect the way it is, in my opinion. It needed the extra time to develop the world and the characters of Moon Knight, since it is an origin story. You have the core focus on characters like Mark, Steven, Layla, Arthur, and the gods. It doesn't stray away from these characters and still manages to have zero filler. The segmented nature of the show also aids with this character in particular because Mark's psyche is segmented into multiple personalities, just like a TV show is. The show also takes its time and does a good job at showing Mark's childhood trauma and how it has affected both him and Steven into adulthood. The nature of the format also gives us some really fun cliffhangers that made us want more and more every week as the show is airing. Like the first time he puts on the Moon Knight suit, the reveal of Tarawet, who looks like a hippo, the Field of Reeds right after Steven turns to sand, and the reveal of Jake Lockley at the end. If you try to take anything out of the story, you will weaken the story, but that's what you would have to do in order to make a film.
All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. The timer starts when the first competitor speaks.
I think what you're looking, I think what you're looking for is a character development that is earned over a long portion of time, not necessarily something that can be condensed down into anywhere between 90 and 150 minutes. You're looking for a character like Sam Wilson who has an established backstory to become, hold on, let me finish, who has an established backstory to become this mantle of peace and justice and freedom with. And I will give you that as a bifragmented individual, a black man and a superhero, how he responds to trauma, how he responds to police, how he responds to authority. And you get that, and we didn't get enough of it. You're asking to cut that down. You are taking away. Yes, you are. You literally said it would work better as a movie. You're taking those important pieces away from that to make it easier to consume for you as an individual. I think personally that it needed to be expanded. It needed more episodes because it's so great. You say that Zemo has absolutely nothing to do there. I think it shows the gray nature that America is and has in relationships due to war and aggression. because sometimes you do need to work with an enemy, and sometimes that enemy might be the person that you fought last week. And I think that shows that relationship between them. And the show isn't just about Sam. The show is called Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's not just about Sam, it's about Bucky as well. And that portion of the show, those episodes 3 and 4 that you were talking about, are about Bucky, not about Sam. You can say we could throw the Dora Milaje out. I think the Dora Milaje were an integral part of that show. You're literally sitting here saying that you want to condense this down. I'm sorry, I know I'm taking a lot of time. You want to condense this down and take that out when Bucky is trying to become a better individual and he is going against the deprogramming, and the Dora Milaje steal his arm. That's by far probably one of the most salient points that show made. And you're like, no, let's get rid of the Dora Milaje. I don't see it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that like everything to do with this is Sam's arc. You get it in the very beginning. You get it at the end. You can still have Bucky in the movie. You can still have him have kind of his arc, but he is a side character in the show because it is Falcon becoming Captain America. That's what the show is about, and Bucky is always just a side character in that. I'm not saying get rid of Bucky. I'm not saying get rid of some of his development.
I'm not saying
you
just
can
get
have
rid of Bucky.
Zemo like a little bit if you want to, but I'm just saying if you don't get rid of those things entirely, all the middle portions that take away from Sam's arc. I would also say take Isaiah Bradley, a character that we see very little of, and make him a much more important role in this movie. I'm not saying that you have to take away from Sam at all. I'm not saying you have to take away from Bucky. I'm saying, you can do Bucky's story without the Dora Milaje. You can't though. You can.
You can't though because he gets his arm from the Dora Milaje, and they're the ones who deprogram. It does because they're the ones who deprogrammed Bucky.
He's going through therapy. You can just have him going through therapy.
That's just it. They're the ones who deprogram Bucky. You can't do that. You're literally saying, let's go ahead and take the most important thing that Bucky has done in the last 70 years, which is go through the deprogramming that not only Shuri, but everybody in Wakanda helped him through.
Bucky is on a good look. You've had a lot of time. Bucky has been on
I gave you nothing but
Bucky
time.
is in a good place in the show. And
he wouldn't be there without the Dora Milaje.
I don't care. You have them have a little part. I don't care. I'm talking about having the core story on Sam. You don't need all of that middle stuff in the movie.
You do,
Take
though.
that out. Focus it on Sam's development. You can do that in a 2-hour movie. You don't need all of that time for that. With Moon Knight, you need all of that time for these great characters.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 1-minute closings. Jay, you're up first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
You do need that because it's not just about Bucky. It's not just about Sam. Bucky was also in contention for grabbing and holding onto that shield. He was the other individual who could have taken the mantle of Captain America from Steve. At least with your show, you could go more in depth with both of that. You could give them more screen time. You could give Isaiah Bradley more screen time. What you're saying is you want to condense it all down to be easily consumable for you as an individual who doesn't want to see all of this because it's not important to you because you're only focusing on one half of the story. What I'm saying is that there was too much going on in Moon Knight. He can have a fragmented mind. You can show that easily. It's been done in other movies. Whether or not you like Split, whether or not you like movies with individuals who have schizophrenia, it's done better in movies than it is in TV shows. And I think that lends credence to the fact that Moon Knight would have been better as a movie, and you could have saved Scarlet Scarab for a post-credit scene. Would it have sucked? No, it wouldn't have actually.
Time. All right, Chad, back over to you. Final minute on the clock.
I'm going to push back because I think Moonlight is a really great origin TV show. I think people like to see origin stuff in movies anymore. You want to bring in a lot of different characters from the main thing, bring that into the movies, but keep them like out of the shows. Keep the shows like really focused because you have a lot of this time, but that doesn't mean that you could just bring every single thing from other stuff into it. With Moon Knight, like I said, it works better as a fragmented episodic TV show. You get a lot of the really great cliffhangers. With Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you take away a lot of Sam's growth in this. I'm not saying take away a lot from Bucky, take a little bit away because, he is more of the side character of this show. Bring in a lot more development for Sam and his thing, because that's totally missing from the middle. In Moon Knight, everything is perfect. You get development for every character, every personality, and the villain is really great. I think, we're good.
And time. All right. I'm glad you were good, because whether or not I was going to stop you. With that said, though, we're going to go ahead and put you guys in the back and bring the judges back on screen for the deliberation here. With that said, Richie, I'm going to go to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Man, this is tough. First of all, I want to say I've also seen Postal. This is as an aside. There you go.
There you go. You're impressing Jay tonight, both on camera and off. It's been a real. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. This is really tough. I think both good points. Ultimately, I think just because I think he made a good point about how I don't think people really want to see origin stories on screen, and it's better as a fleshed out TV show. I'm gonna go with Chad, but it's very close.
All right, Jake, down to you. Who gets your vote?
I have Chad as well here. It came down to the tennis match on Bucky because Chad was pitching his Sam story, and then Jay's like, well, Bucky should be there too. And then Chad hits it back with the Bucky's always the side character, and that's kind of where the argument stuck for me before it blew up a little.
All right, Chad. So with that, the vote will go to Chad. But Malcolm, since we rarely get to have somebody be here for their own question, I am going to let you give your opinion before we move it on.
Funny enough, I was actually going with Jay on this because he brought up a good point that Falcon and the Winter Soldier would have done better with more episodes and more expanded. I think, and that point kind of stuff for me because I think, and I think Jay managed to bounce back at Chad when Chad mentioned about people not wanting to see origin stories on film and that. So yeah.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and put you in the back as we're going to move on to the third question of the match. It has been...
I got robbed. No, I 100% got robbed on that. There's nothing that Chad said that I didn't bounce back from.
You can take it up with them in the DMs. You can drive. We discussed this earlier. You can drive to Jake's state. It's not that far. We can take it up there. Richie might be a bit harder. He's a little further. But with that said, let's go ahead and turn that anger onto the next question. Simply put, the question is, because I don't know how to naturally transition into this. What is Mike Flanagan's best film? A recent top horror director. Obviously, all of his most recent work has been in his television shows on Netflix, but he had nearly 10 years worth of constant horror filmmaking prior to that. What of those films is the best? Chad, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I'll give you the timer, and it will start when you begin speaking.
Mike Flanagan is one of my favorite directors, and I love everything he has done, but the best and most ambitious film he has ever made was his last one, Dr. Sleep. With the permission from Stephen King, he perfectly blends the worlds of King's novels and Kubrick's The Shining. That is the best of both worlds because it has fantastic visuals as well as great story and character development, all while still immersing you in Mike's own style of filmmaking. How the fuck did he do this? It was an impossible task, yet he did it perfectly. The acting is perfect from Ewan McGregor, Rebecca Ferguson, and Kylie Curran, a lot of others. It's a healing movie since it heals the divide between King and Kubrick, but also focuses on healing, the healing form of childhood trauma from addiction and from the fear of death. The film is brutal and dark, but also very hopeful in facing your fears and rising above adversity. The movie is on the longer side, but it uses every moment to good use and gives us a fantastic third act. What an impressive and beautiful film. It's Mike's best for sure.
All right. And time. Jay, back over to you, sir. You got 1 minute on the clock when you begin speaking.
You know me. You know that I like to take chances, and I like movies that take chances. I think that Mike Flanagan's best work is Before I Wake. We're talking about a movie that actually does something and isn't just a continuation of another story that had to be written 40 years after the original was and directed 37 years after the original movie came out. What I like to see is a director bust his ass to make something that may or may not be loved by all, but is at least original and not a continuation, not a sequel. You say what you will about that. I'll get into it later, but Stephen King has been going through this transformation after he's gotten off of drugs and stopped drinking. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that Mike Flanagan's best work is when he gets to have a little bit more free reign with what he does. And I think the story of Before I Wake is that, and it's not Dr. Sleep. So Before I Wake.
All right. That will be time on the opening there. So we have Before I Sleep versus, or Jesus Christ, Dr. Sleep versus Before I Wake. We'll go ahead.
It's Dr. Wake and Before I Sleep, bro. Come on.
Absolutely. Can you tell I watch horror films? Back over to you, Chad. 2 minutes on the clock.
I mean, I'm glad you said something about Mike having free reign and that giving him something really great to do. Mike Flanagan said that there was so much studio involvement and production issues with Before I Wake. In fact, he had an original concept for the movie called Insomnia that would have been more of a fantasy than horror. I think that's why the strongest parts are the fantastical elements, with a bunch of shoehorn jump scares that don't seem to fit are what the studio provided. Mike said himself that they were trying to show too much in Before I Wake, that it took away from some of the creepiness of the film. Mike said Jacob Tremblay was good in Before I Wake, but he was jealous that he saw the kid act in Room because he was spectacular in that. He's also better in 5 minutes of Dr. Sleep than he is in all of Before I Wake. Before I Wake really isn't doing anything new, while Dr. Sleep is taking a novel adaptation to a whole new level. Before I Wake, to me, just feels like another kind of weird adaptation of A Nightmare on Elm Street, but just not as good or creepy or innovative at all. In Dr. Sleep, the way Mike shows The Shining happening and how it can be weaponized and stolen from you is just epic. Kubrick never really got that far in his adaptation. Even though I wouldn't sit here and argue that Dr. Sleep is better than The Shining, it definitely does some things more interesting with character development and storytelling. Jack Torrance in the original Shining doesn't really have much of an arc because he seems crazy throughout, but there are brilliant arcs in Dr. Sleep with Danny Torrance learning how to control his addiction and becoming a role model and teacher. Albert Stone learns how to control her powers and not hide herself from the world. Even the villain's downfall is caused by her desperate attempt to preserve her own life. Before I Wake really doesn't have much rich character development like Dr. Sleep does. In fact, it gets kind of cheesy there in the end. Mike Flanagan took everything he had and learned from his previous films to give us the gift of that is Dr. Sleep. And I think that confidence and the backing of a stellar creative team with no studio interference really aided in that film as well. It is the film he really wanted to make, and he fucking nailed it, dude, with Dr. Sleep.
And time. All right, Jay, back over to you. 2 minutes on the clock when ready.
I think when you pull quotes from an individual who is talking about the movie that they're making at that point in time is an unfair way to try to say, oh, this movie is bad. Of course, they're going to shit on that movie when they're talking about another movie, which is guaranteed where you pulled that quote from. You pulled that quote from out of context and in the context of, hey, this was asked to him during the press release, the press tour for Dr. Sleep. So no wonder it paints your movie and Jacob Tremblay in a positive light. I'm not saying that it's a bad movie. I'm not saying what I am saying, however, is that it's not his best. You sit here and that you say that it's just a ripoff of Nightmare on Elm Street. I think Nightmare on Elm Street could have taken notes, especially if they're going to remake that fucking movie, which you know they're gonna. So all I need to do is have a director watch that fucking movie because that movie's actually scary. Say what you want about studio interference. There's studio interference in every movie made ever. You sat here and you said, oh, hey, look, you know, the character development is great for this reason and that reason. That's because it's easy when half of your characters are established characters in the lore. It's incredibly easy for that to happen. You say that it was incredibly easy for Stephen King to be like, oh yeah, no, this is what I wanted versus what Kubrick did, and we buried the hatchet. It's real easy to bury the hatchet with a dead guy. Like you sit here and you say, oh, well, you know, I have a great working relationship with an alive director, and I can't really talk bad about the dead. Mike Flanagan did something that I don't think a lot of people have done when it comes to horror movies. They've actually created, even with studio interference, he created an incredibly creepy movie. And the premise of this movie, when the kid falls asleep, he dreams, the dreams come alive. Not an individual from the dreams, though there is an individual from the dreams who does come alive. And the fact that this is a story about love, this is a story about loss, and a family trying to move on from the death of their own child while still trying to bring that joy into somebody else's life and being sucked in and trapped in that. This is why Before I Wake is the better movie.
And time. All right, we're going to go ahead and go into the 4-minute open discussion. Timer starts and the first competitor speaks.
I mean, Dr. Sleep is all about love and loss. I mean, you have, all
of course it is, because that's all Stephen King has done for the last 10, 12 years of his career since his motorcycle accident.
And this
doesn't make it a good movie.
It does make it a good movie because this is where Mike Flanagan shines. He shines in taking his love for Stephen King, Stanley Kubrick, and making something new out of it. Taking a sequel to a book called Dr. Sleep, adapting that, but also adapting the original The Shining and adapting the movie The Shining, and making this all into like one coherent, amazing piece. How did he do it? I don't know, but only Mike Flanagan could, and he excelled at it. You know, he cast Rebecca Ferguson in this, and she is one of the greatest villains of all time. Your villain is not even really a villain; it's just a CGI kind of monster that pops out of nowhere to scare you out of nowhere. You talk about like the love and loss. The thing about it, though, is it's weird because the dad of the foster dad of Jacob Tremblay in Before I Wake disappears randomly because of his powers or something, and then no one's really that torn up about it or sad about it. I'm like, what? Like, how? I
know it's almost as if his dreams can alter reality or something. It's weird how that happens.
Alter their emotional reality so that they can.
It's weird how that it's weird how that happens, right? You can call it what you want to call it. You can't call it a plot hole because it's literally what the kid does when he's asleep.
I'm not talking
but he creates constructs. But at the exact same point in time, let's go ahead and let's roll it back. You brought up studio interference in my movie in your quote that's
gave him a headache, and then he created Hush because of that. So if you want to give anything to Before I Wake, it's not being a great movie or the best movie. It's that it pissed him off so much that he decided to make Hush
Mike Flanagan's best
which is
movie.
one of his great movies. And then after that, he decided, hey, I'm going to go really big, and I'm going to make Dr. Sleep.
I'm going to go really big and suck Stephen King's dick so much that I have to ask him for permission every time I want to make a fucking shot. No, miss me with that bullshit.
When you make a Stephen King
Stephen King doesn't, and neither did fucking Stanley Kubrick, and that's why The Shining is by far one of his best movies.
Yeah, Shining's fantastic. Yeah.
The Shining is fantastic. Yes. Dr. Sleep is overrated. Dr. Sleep is an overrated sequel. Dr. Sleep is an overrated sequel to somebody who found a god.
Dr. Sleep is insanely highly rated or anything like that.
Dr. Sleep is one of Stephen King's, if not Stephen King's highest rated movie outside of The Green Mile.
And it is fantastic. So
that's highly rated, and it's overrated because everybody did.
No one talks about Before I Wake, and you know why? It's just because it's
okay, but the amount of individuals who talk about a movie does not make it the individuals who talk about movies do not necessarily make it the best movie that somebody's ever done.
That's true.
Most people don't talk about Ben Stiller's best movie, but
Mike Flanagan doesn't even like Before I Wake.
Mike Flanagan didn't like Before I Wake because it was during a press junket for a different movie.
Before I Wake, it's just. He's gone on to bigger and better things. And the best things about Mike Flanagan is where he brings in the tales of, existential dread and the fear of death. And that's exactly what he brings into Dr. Sleep. That's what he brings into Midnight Mass, which is his great TV show that he made that's also very fantastic. And it's really him doing exactly what he wants to do. He had dreams as a young filmmaker.
The last 10 seconds to actually fucking say something, because you have controlled this entire 4 minutes.
Go ahead. Nothing?
No, I'm good.
And time. All right, we're going to go on to the 1-minute closings. Chad, you're up first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Like I said, Mike Flanagan did the impossible with this, combining all these things and making it a fantastic movie. In Dr. Sleep, the way Mike shows The Shining happen and how it can be weaponized and stolen from you is just epic. Kubrick never really got that far in his adaptation. Mike Flanagan took everything he had learned from previous films and made a crazy great film here. The performances, the visuals, the way he shows The Shining working for good and for evil, the horror of the villains murdering a kid in cold blood to preserve their own lives. There's no acting like that in Before I Wake. It just kind of drones on, and the character arcs feel so real and so rich. Kylie Curran is one of the best child performances in a film that I've ever seen. And it's just like, I don't know. I mean, it's just the best thing he's really ever done as far as films go. Before I Wake is just a muddled mess of a good idea he had that just got so muddled down in like, community trying to make a film here.
And time. All right. And then back over to you, Jay. You have the final minute on the clock.
Yeah, it's really easy to make a great movie when you have established characters, like I've already brought up. Your author of the book has found religion, whatever it may be, after the fact. So yeah, he's going to bring that in. And your director decided, hey, I'm not going to go to the studio. I don't give a fuck what the studio says. I want to go to what the director says. And if the director or the author says, and if I don't like what the author says, if I don't like what he says, I'm still going to do it because I'm such a fucking fanboy. You can say what you want and pull out of context quotes from Mike Flanagan about a movie when you pull it from a press junket from a different movie. Of course, it's going to be in a negative connotation because it's not a positive thing about the movie that he's talking about. At least with Before I Wake, it was an original concept that he had. You can talk about bad CGI monsters. We've had bad CGI monsters all over the place. This was actually intelligent in the way that they do it, falling asleep in class, creating this monster that haunts not only himself, but everybody else, is just an intelligent thing to do.
And time. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put you guys in the back. I'm going to go ahead and bring the judges in for the deliberation here. You guys will have a couple of seconds to put together some final thoughts here. As I do have a couple of fact checks to bring up. So the first thing is Jay's quick mental math was actually damn near close. You were 1 year off. The books of The Shining and Dr. Sleep were written, the books for Dr. Sleep and The Shining were written 36 years apart, and the movies were released 39 years apart from each other. So it was a damn close estimation there. And then, the big thing with this round, which is where most of my research went into, was the production issues behind Before I Wake. Now, obviously, this is not to say that I wasn't able to find the website in a limited amount of time or a specific interview. I could not find any specific issues related to the production of the film itself in terms of the shooting. However, distribution is where a lot of the issues I were able to find did come up in the film, including quotes from Mike Flanagan himself about the distribution of the film. The movie was originally shot in 2013. It was supposed to release in 2015. It was being distributed by Relativity Media, who at the time of the proposed distribution were going through bankruptcy. They would eventually file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy before having to sell the studio off to new owners. It was in all of that the movie itself kind of got lost in the shuffle, like a number of films did, and didn't see release until 2018 when Netflix purchased it in late 2017, following the success of his next two films that he made, Hush and Gerald's Game, both of which were Netflix originals. But in terms of that is the biggest issue that I could find. In terms of the movie itself, Chad was correct that the original title of the film was Somnia. That was what the script was called. Apparently, that was a decision that was made by Relatively Media to change the title of the film. It was something that he objected to, but then because screenings were already done under the name, he opted not to change it when it was released to Netflix. And he opposed to, in terms of the genre of the film, again, if there were production issues, I was not just able to find it in the brief time of research that I was able to get done, but I did find that Flanagan made a public comment rejecting to the marketing of the film, saying that it was marketed as a supernatural horror film when he would have preferred it to be marketed as a fable or supernatural drama, not so much a horror film. But again, marketing, he's openly said that he was kept out of the marketing and promoting of the film prior to Relatively Media going for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And then once they did, the movie had no promotion until it was sold to Netflix and was quickly released on the service. So that was not something he had control over at all. Again, that's not to say that there couldn't have been more issues, but I tried to read through as many places as I could and couldn't find anything specific related to the shooting of the film itself. With that said, though, Tato, I'm going to go up to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
For me, the quality of the arguments was really equal on this one, so I had to go to quantity, and I just heard more from Chad about why Dr. Sleep was better and why about Before I Wake was maybe not so good. Okay,
and then Malcolm, down to you.
Yeah, this was tough because like what Tato said, like there was definitely a lot said by both people, but ultimately I just sort of leaned slightly towards Chad. It was by the slivers of margins, though.
All right, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and put you in the back, and we will go ahead and move on to question number 4 here for this match. And we are going to be moving on to a different director who has had much bigger success in film, both in terms of box office, in terms of critical final, maybe not necessarily critical reviews, but just overall recognition. It's arguably, you could easily say Mike Flanagan's recognition didn't come until his television shows. But this guy is down in success in film. He made arguably the most underrated trilogy, or 2 of the most underrated trilogy entries of the 2010s, and he hit big earlier this year. The question is, what is the best film directed or written? I put that in there as well because he has a couple extra. Directed or written by Matt Reeves. With that said, Jay, you are going to be up first on this question, so I will give you the timer, and we'll start when you begin speaking.
The Batman is Matt Reeves' best film. I don't care what you have to say about him adding to a trilogy. This right here is the pinnacle of what you are looking for in not only a comic book film, but in an action film that shows how Batman is actually a smart individual. Matt Reeves went about this incredibly well, blending not only the Long Halloween, but Batman's years 1 and 2 into this, blending the fact that, you know, Thomas and Martha Wayne happen to be either crazy or connected to the mob, which is something that we don't necessarily see a lot, but is by far probably one of the more interesting things that you see in Batman's backstory. Matt Reeves made a 3-hour movie that to some is hard to sit through. I finally watched it the other night when I got the chance to. This movie is fucking entertaining, and it's so much better than just sitting down and watching a bunch of CGI monsters do their thing for an hour and a half, 2 hours at a time, led by Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis is in my movie, and he puts up a better fucking performance in my movie than he has in anything he's done in the last decade.
And all right, Chad, over to you. 1 minute on the clock.
Matt Reeves' best film had to be an Apes film. I knew that because that is one of the greatest trilogies ever made. Then I thought, well, it has to be the last one in the trilogy because it is one of those trilogies that just got better and better as it went along, thanks to Matt Reeves. I chose War for the Planet of the Apes. This film is a masterpiece. There's no other way to put it. It looks stellar. It perfectly blending the motion captured apes with the environment to make everything feel real, fully immersing you into the world of this film. Andy Serkis' performance in this as Caesar is the best performance I've ever seen from him, and that's saying something. His arc and the range of emotions he shows in this film are beautiful. The hints of the comedy in this film help to balance the despair felt. In some ways, it is a very bleak film, shining a light on the worst that humanity has to offer, but it also shows the best humanity has to offer with the apes who start to become more human than the humans in the franchise. You really care about Caesar and his tribe, and you want to see them safe and happy. Caesar is dangerously close to becoming like Koba, and is really intense.
And time. All right, so we have the Batman versus War for the Planet of the Apes. With that said, we're going to go back over to Jay when you are ready, sir. 2 minutes on the clock.
You know, you would think it was really incredibly difficult to force multiple villains into a Batman movie because every time that it's happened, it just hasn't worked out incredibly well. Guess what? it works incredibly well, whether or not it's the Riddler, whether or not it's Catwoman, who happens to be an anti-hero in this film, but is still technically a Batman villain, whether or not it's the Penguin. They blend everything so well. This is a crime movie. This isn't a thriller. This is the epitome of what you want a comic book movie, especially a comic book movie about Batman to be. And Matt Reeves does nothing but show his passion in every frame of this movie. It was written for Robert Pattinson. It was written for Zoe Kravitz. And you know what? You can see it in every frame of this film. They don't want anything but perfection for this, even with the production issues that they had when they had to stall it because of COVID lockdowns and when Robert Pattinson caught COVID himself and had to take a step back and make sure that he, didn't die from the boomer doomer. My movie is the perfect comic book movie. My movie is the perfect movie of 2022. This movie does nothing but drop gold. What have we gotten when it comes to the Planet of the Apes? We've gotten an old, tired franchise that they tried to make new again, and they tried to humanize the apes, which is the worst thing that you can possibly do. What Matt Reeves has done with the Batman is create a Batman who isn't so protected by the 128 different forms of martial arts, isn't protected by his money, but is still vulnerable and still does what he is supposed to do and still does what is right. That's what you want in a movie. I don't need apes trying to be human. I need humans standing up against corruption, standing up against the flaws of the political system, standing up for what is right. And that's why Batman is the best Matt Reeves.
And time.
The Batman, sorry.
All good. The Batman. With that said, Chad, we're going to go back over to you for the War for the Planet of the Apes. Time starts when you begin speaking.
No, it's the War for the Planet of the Apes.
It's my accent. I'm sorry. Chad, 2 minutes when you're ready.
It was very interesting an interesting move from Matt Reeves to tackle a Batman movie, and I definitely have to say that I did like it, but it is yet another Batman movie. It is really good, but it really doesn't do much to separate itself out from under the shadow of The Dark Knight. There's really one good character arc with Bruce Wayne, and that doesn't really justify an almost 3-hour runtime. I know he's going for overly moody like Batman can be, but it just wallows in that for the whole 3 hours. There's not much levity to help you enjoy it or nuances to say why it's worthy to tell, to justify bringing a story to tell, to justify bringing Batman back. Batman going from vengeful to hopeful is basically what we got with Caesar in War for the Planet of the Apes. It's something that Matt Reeves loves to do with characters, I guess. It's done better, even better in War, though, because it's mostly done visually. Caesar sees visions of Koba and then sees how monstrous the Colonel has become and what has become of his tribe, and decides to take the path of hope rather than the path of despair. The Riddler doesn't really feel that much different from the Joker in The Dark Knight, but just not as good or iconic either. It's just him leaving trails of video clues for Batman to see. There's an overuse of songs like Ave Maria, so it gets so repetitive. They shoehorn in the Riddler Joker scene that feels like an in-credit scene, and yet it's in the movie proper, I guess, to sequel bait. And that's all this movie kind of is. It's just to say, let's bring in more sequels. Let's bring in this TV show. Let's bring in all this stuff. The characters really aren't that interesting in themselves, like the side characters especially, because they made Catwoman Falcone's daughter, which was super weird. It's almost like they didn't trust to actually make her a character on her own. So they had to do something with her. I think with some heavy editing, this could have been much tighter and much more enjoyable. I also wish they would stop sequel hinting, like I said. But War for the Planet of the Apes is a perfect trilogy ender, and only Matt Reeves could have done that.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. I am going to put out there again, try and make it as equal as possible, allow the other competitor the chance to speak. But with that said, there will be 4 minutes on the clock. Time starts when the first person does speak.
Seeing these apes come in with perfect motion capture, the best you've ever seen against this backdrop is so visually stunning. But then also, I love the side characters in this. You have Maurice, who wants to protect the mute little girl, even though Caesar doesn't want to. You have Bad Ape, who's very lost and lonely himself, but then he finds a sense of community with the rest of the tribe, and he's a very good like comedic sense of comic relief as well, but he's also a fully fledged character. Woody Harrelson is killing it as the villain in this. I think he's better than any of the villains in the Batman, to be honest, just because of his dedication and determination to destroy anything that he doesn't see as a perfect human.
The Riddler is out here being the Zodiac killer, which may or may not be something that a lot of people may or may not like. That's completely fine. My biggest issue that I have with you right now on this argument is that you say that nobody here has their own like real path in this movie. The only person who has a decent character arc is Batman. That's not true, because what you honestly see is you see Jeffrey Wright sitting here and becoming the commissioner instead of just being Jimmy Gordon. You see him working with and helping and learning to trust Batman. You see Batman doing everything it is in his power, even if at the beginning of the movie when he's just in the coat and the mask being fucking powerless, bro. Like, he is like, okay, so you call it what you want it. Batman movies are Batman movies, and where you have shit ranked is where you have shit ranked. This is a better movie than The Dark Knight. This is a better movie than Batman Begins, and this is a better movie than The Dark Knight Rises. You say what you want to say, and most of that is tainted by whether or not you loved Heath Ledger as the Joker. It doesn't matter. Mark Hamill is the best Joker of all time. Is that scene shoehorned in? You could say that scene is shoehorned in. I'm not going to argue with you on that. Does that take away from the rest of the movie? Absolutely not. What you see is the character arc of Selina Kyle actually becoming go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think Jeffrey Wright is a perfectly fine actor. I really like him in other things, and this, to me, he's completely dull. I look at someone like Gary Oldman, who's actually given me a fantastic performance as that, where he actually has a lot of stuff to do. Here, he's just kind of like there, and he's just talking really low, and just like, hey, do you think it's this thumb drive? Do you think it's a... And it's just like, I don't know, it's just really dull a lot of the times. War for the Planet of the Apes is a war movie. It's also a sci-fi movie. It does all of these things expertly, and it's also a very great character drama. It's so focused on Caesar, and we get that. We get this journey.
Every movie has been focused on Caesar. That's just it. You want to sit here and say that your movie has... Really. Every movie has been focused on Caesar, because Caesar is the main focus of the new Planet of the Apes trilogy. I don't want to hear that. What we have here is technically an original Batman story, and it's not a fucking origin story. You know why? Because we don't get to see Thomas and Martha Wayne murdered. We don't have to see the dropping of the pearls. We don't have to see the fucking gunshot go off. You know what we do have? We do have an original character with Robert Pattinson doing everything it is that you want Batman to do. He's not the Kevin Conroy Batman who likes to sit there and pretend that he's this happy-go-lucky individual. He's not the fucking playboy Bruce Wayne that you see Christian Bale or Val Kilmer or George Clooney's being. He is an individual unto himself, and he is still trying to learn how to come into the cow. Pause. Phrasing. But he is doing it in a way that is so... It's meticulous to the point where I actually enjoy it, and I was so sucked in by the end of this movie, I didn't even realize that it became a 3-hour movie. Whereas when I watched the Apes trilogy, I'm like, I can't wait for these motherfuckers to be over. I honestly can't wait for the next Batman movie, and you don't hear me say I can't wait for sequels.
And time. All right, so we're going to go into the 1-minute closings. Jay, you are up first, so 1 minute on the clock when ready.
I know that a lot of directors and a lot of script writers like to pick and choose from certain things. But when you're pulling from The Long Halloween, when you're pulling from year 1, when you're pulling from year 2, and you are able to combine and create this amalgam of a character that fits perfectly within all of them and still somehow has a relationship not only with his main love interest, the individual who he trusts the most, and it still shows out the fact that he is a detective, versus, hey, this is the 3rd movie in a trilogy, so it has to end because we know it's going to end, because they're not going to make another one. What we have is a fresh new start for Batman to become the Batman that we all know and some people love. I like the fact that he is the world's greatest detective. He is not bulletproof in this movie. His suit has certain spots, and I think that shows the smartness of the character, that shows the smartness of everything else that's going into it. And he doesn't just rely on himself, he relies on other people, and it works. And that's why Matt Reeves created the best movie with Batman.
All right. And then, Chad, you have the final minute of the round. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I mean, I'm fine with you saying that Matt Reeves created a great Batman movie or a good Batman movie that you really like. I really like Robert Pattinson as well. But with this, unfortunately, it just still gets so derivative in a lot of different areas. With the whole detective thing, he doesn't even do that great of a job. Riddler is always still, defeating him left and right. He doesn't stop the dam from breaking. He doesn't even capture the Riddler. So he doesn't even do that great of a job in his own movie. The rest of the characters are just kind of bland, I think. And then, but with War for the Planet of the Apes, you get the great trilogy capper, the capper of Caesar. He's got more development to go through, and Matt Reeves knows this, and he does this perfectly in this movie. You have the greatest performance I've ever seen from Andy Serkis. All of the loss and stuff on his face, but at the end, when he's dying and he knows that his tribe is safe, he has a sigh of relief, and this is what this movie gives you.
And time. All right, guys, that is the end of the round. Excellent job once again. I'm going to go ahead and put you guys in the back as I will bring the judges in for the deliberation on this round. So the only real fact checks for this round is obviously there was a comment made about Caesar being the lead of every Planet of the Apes film. Technically, that's not correct, but he is actually the most featured lead over the course of the entire franchise. The character of Caesar actually originates from the original series of films. He was portrayed by Roddy McDowall, and he is the lead character of the fourth and fifth films, Conquest and Battle for the Planet of the Apes, before they rebooted it and chose to go with that character over the Cornelius character that was the lead in the originals. Andy Serkis, of course, portrayed him in the three films. It's also worth noting, because the concept of franchises and sequels and all that was brought up, that both of these films are technically still a part of active franchises. The Batman, as it was said, does have spin-offs that are actively in the work. Both the biggest one being the sequel directed by Matt Reeves, which is currently in some form of development. No active release date or production date has been set. But we also know that a couple of spinoffs are going to HBO, the most reported one being the spinoff on Colin Farrell's Penguin character, which will follow where the character was left in the film. But of course, Matt Reeves films are also being continued. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is the fourth film in that series, set to come out in 2024. Wes Ball, the director of the Maze Runner trilogy, will be taking over for Matt Reeves in the director's chair, and they've actually already begun production last month in New South Wales, Sydney, Australia. I think I read that backwards, but either way, they are in Australia filming right now. So with that said, Malcolm, I'm going to go up to you. Richie's laugh tells me I did say that backwards. So Malcolm, I'm going to go up to you. Who gets the vote, and what was the main selling point?
Yeah, this is tough, but ultimately, I went with Jay. Like, one of the main selling points was he managed to convince me that a movie that I'm not a big fan of is actually pretty decent. So, but I think he said a lot about why the Batman was good versus War of the Planet of the Apes.
All right, and then Richie, down to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Yeah, just quickly, you did say it backwards. That'd be New South Wales is a state, so yeah, that'd be like saying Michigan, Detroit.
Okay.
But yeah, that's so good. But I almost partly wanted to give it to Jay to make me laugh by calling COVID Doomer or Boomer Doomer. That was funny. But yeah, I'll focus on the actual arguments. I will go to Jay as well. Because I think he did a great knockbacks of how how Batman does establish characters more than just the Batman. I think he had good counterpoints for Chad that he couldn't really come back on. And I just think he did a good job selling how Batman is a really really good film. So I'm gonna Jay.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and put you guys in the back. Thank you guys so much, as we are going to go ahead and move on, because it is 2-2. We couldn't expect anything else from two juggernauts. We're going into the blind round. Here is how that works. The blind round.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Before you, I'm sorry. I really have to pee. Can you give me like 40 seconds, like 60 seconds before we get into this, just so I'm like fully locked in?
I mean, I can vamp while you're peeing. Do you know how the rules work?
For the most part, just don't give him any extra time ahead of me.
No, you're good. I'm not going to.
I'll go as well.
Yeah, no, I have to pee so bad, dude. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to bother editing this. They're going to go pee real quickly. We're going to vamp for the rules, and hopefully I can do it long enough in order to not have to edit this. You guys will find out if this showed up in the final video. The blind round is a question in which they are completely unprepared for. They have no indication as to where it is going to come from. It'll be given to them. The way that this is going to work is I'm first going to ask them the generalization of a question. My classic example has always been, name me a Will Smith movie, name me a Marvel movie, whatever. I'm going to give them a generalization. They will have a little bit of time to find the answer they want to choose to go with. Then I will reveal the actual question to them. Whether or not they feel that their answer 100% answers the question I've asked them, they're going to have to do their best to debate that question. And we've seen plenty of times that the answer you don't think should win does win. So it's absolutely doable. But with that said, once they get that, they'll get a few minutes to go off screen. They can put together their arguments, and then we'll come back and we will finish off the debate. So with that said, Chad is back. I will give Jay just a moment here to get back. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to commentate. See there, we got a lot of Star Wars posters in the back of that room. I can tell you one thing. It's not a Star Wars question I'm about to ask them. And I don't even have to change it to hide that fact. There's a lot of, wow, look at that. That's Rogue One is first. I'm going to read this as they're ranked in the order that he likes them. So Rogue One is first. Last Jedi is second. You guys can judge him if you'd like. Then The Empire Strikes Back is third. I can't see what's fourth, but Revenge of the Sith is clearly fifth. I recognize that one. I don't know. That looks like a Anakin Obi-Wan like cover album or something. Like I can't actually make out what it is. Like it looks like two people are back to back. Chad, what's behind you? I'll guess what's in your kitchen cabinets or something. What's? Yeah. All right. So the first one over there on the left, I'm gonna assume that is the cups. I guess my left is your right. Yeah, behind you.
Cups are in that one. So next to the fridge.
Oh fuck, I was already wrong. All right, what about Malcolm doesn't think number 4 is a Star Wars film. We're gonna keep vamping here. Malcolm, what do you think number 4 is?
I was actually about to say, looking at it closely, I actually do think it is this.
It is a Star Wars film? Your mic just went out.
I think I do see like a little lightsaber or something.
Well, I didn't know if that was like the light or if that was a lightsaber, but I can't. Malcolm, your mic's out. Like I can't hear you at all. I want to when he gets that fixed. I'll bring the next person on. Richie, what are your thoughts on Jay's poster? What do you think?
I can see the lightsaber. I can see the lightsaber.
I'll make it big for you so that way you can see it. What do we think? Yeah, what's that fourth poster, Jay? What is that? Is that that is a Star Wars film, right? You're still muted.
The one with Anakin and Padme standing back to back?
That's what it is. Anakin and Padme.
It's Anakin and Padme standing back. Yeah, it's Anakin and Padme standing back to back. It is an Attack of the Clones poster. As a matter of fact.
All right.
It is one of the alternative posters that I got from Brian Michaels, as a matter of fact. Oh shit, I still owe him like $12. No, I don't. I paid him. But yeah, no, it's a Jedi shall not know anger, nor hatred, nor love. And yeah, it's episode 2. It's Attack of the Clones.
All right. Well, we found a way to vamp for a couple of minutes, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm not
cut that out so you don't see my messy ass room. No, cut that out so you don't see my messy ass room, bro. What are you doing?
No,
don't be racist like that.
Sorry.
Don't be racist like that.
We're the same.
I know you live in Florida, but no, we are not. No, we are not.
No, did I just assume?
I'm legit Afro-Latino. And I am Afro-Latino, and my mom is Black and Latino, and my father is mad Irish. So that's why this happens. But it's also winter, so I don't got the sun no more, so I don't get no more melanin for the rest of the year. And it's about to snow here on Sunday. It's November. It was 80 degrees last week.
All right. Well, crisis over. Well, maybe not. They're about to play a blind round. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get into it if you guys are both ready to go. Okay. All right. So as said, I'm going to throw the general prompt up on the screen first for you guys to pick from. As always, you guys are allowed to take a second to think. You're allowed to take a second to research if you need to, just to check all your options, so to speak. The generalization is, name me a film starring or featuring Halle Berry, specifically from the 2010s.
I need to research.
Same.
Days of Future Past.
Okay, so we have X-Men Days of Future Past as Chad's answer, and because Chad answered first, he will be going first on the round.
I am pulling. We said 2010s.
Yes.
Oh, I am so worried about this. John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum.
All right. John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum. Just a long title.
Oh, yes.
For some reason.
Yes. Such a long title. It's definitely longer than X-Men Days of Future Past.
Well, I'm just in terms of characters to type in, but
it's not. X-Men Days of Future Past is still longer than John Wick Chapter 3, John Wick 3 Parabellum, because that's what it's called. You fuck.
All right, I wish, bro. All right, let's go ahead and get into this. We have the X-Men Days of Future Past versus John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum. And what's actually interesting is this question has actually been asked once before. It was never aired because it was a part of a title match, and it was one of the questions that was like, if it goes that far, we'll get to it, but it was never actually played in. And they picked the same two answers as you guys. The question is, what is the best Halle Berry film of the 2010s? And again, wording is just the wording. We are arguing the general film. Don't read into the wording too much, guys. I got to word a question somehow. But they're going to get a couple of minutes behind the scenes to put these arguments together, and we will be back in just a moment with the blind round. All right, guys, we are back, and we are going to get into this. As was said before, the question on table is, what is the best Halle Berry film of the 2010s? And this time, I think they actually both picked good choices, so let's see who can fight it. With that said, Chad, you did answer first, so you're going to have to go first in this round. I will give you the timer. I will say you guys have both been excellent tonight, really passionate. You guys brought exactly what I love in this game, so I wish you both the best of luck. And Chad, when you are ready.
Yeah, Halle Berry's best film of the 2010s is X-Men Days of Future Past. This movie came out and gave fans exactly what they wanted. It gave them a recontextualization of the X-Men lore, the X-Men franchise that had gotten so stale and disappointing after The Last Stand and some Wolverine movies that people just really hated. And Days of Future Past came out and just brought that love of X-Men back. Until we got other really good X-Men movies. I don't know if we would have gotten those if this movie hadn't come out and been as fantastic as it was. You know, Halle Berry's in it. We get to see her come back. We get to see a lot of these great people from the original first few back. And it's so great to see them back on screen. It's got a lot of really great themes in it. It's got really political intrigue and time travel. It's amazing to see Michael Fassbender come in and be Magneto. He is amazing in this. Holy shit. It's a fantastic movie.
And time. All right, Jay, back over to you. 1 minute on the clock.
John Wick Chapter 3 is the best Halle Berry film of the 2010s because she isn't the main character, yet the film benefits from the fact that she is a side character and still provides pivotal information about the past of Mr. John Wick. Whereas at this point, the only reason that Halle is still in the X-Men is because she's a staple of the films, yet doesn't add anything to the proceedings of the film. She's just there to pad the cast. John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum is Halle Berry's best film of the 2010s, and it's because she isn't a main character. She isn't a well-known established character in the universe. She is there to add that little that just topping of, hey, that's Halle Berry. But you know what she does? Something interesting and original for John Wick Chapter 3, whereas she hasn't done anything original or interesting since she shocked Toad in the first X-Men movie. That's why John Wick Chapter 3 is by far Halle Berry's best movie of the 2010s.
All right, and that is time. All right, and Chad, back over to you when you begin speaking. You are muted.
You're muted, buddy.
Yeah, I'm not really trying to contextualize this as a great just Halle Berry film in general, because she is only in like a little bit of it. I'm just talking about this as a fantastic film, just all on its own. The part she is in, she's really, really great. Actually, in John Wick Chapter 3, the best part of her parts, I think, are the dogs. I think they're really fun, like her dogs. If they didn't have that, I don't think that would be as interesting. In fact, the plot of John Wick is the least interesting part of those movies. All you want to see are the fight and the stuff like that. And I think, Halle Berry and the dogs and Keanu Reeves, they're all doing good with that. But it's a plot that was really kind of thin at the very beginning to show Keanu Reeves doing a lot of great action. And then it just keeps going and keeps going. And then when we get to the third one, it just kind of starts to drop off a little bit with the actual plot. It's really just a lot more just fights and fighting and stuff like that. I think like the first two were the pinnacle of that series, and it starts to get a little old now. And I hate to say, it's almost like too much action, too much style over substance. Whereas Days of Future Past actually gives us some really great, character stuff. You have, Beast, who's played brilliantly by Nicholas Hoult, who just wants to take this thing to suppress his blue beast side of him, his mutant side of him. And, then you have J-Law come in as Mystique, and, they're having this whole moral dilemma of, should I be myself or should I throw this away and be what everybody else wants to see of me? And I think when you have stuff like that is just so fantastic and just really makes you think about stuff, it just makes for a much better movie than what I could see in John Wick Chapter 3. I could just go watch the first two movies. I don't really need this one to actually care about the character or do anything. The action's better in the first two.
And time. All right, Jay, 2 minutes for you.
In John Wick, at least Halle Berry is moving the story forward. Nothing that Storm does in Days of Future Past is something that couldn't be done or taken care of by a mutant with a different power set. Her training the dogs in John Wick Chapter 3 and taking that training to a new level can only be called obsessive by her co-workers and co-stars in that film. To make the best film possible speaks to what her character does, not only on screen, but for the plot. She just suited up for the X-Men. She worked her ass off in John Wick to create an original character and move the plot forward. Even hating John for what happened in her past, she still showed character growth by helping him out in the scenes that she is in, instead of just this false sense of altruism and hey, I'm a mutant, so I have to be here. The best part about your movie is the fact that it takes place in the past, but that's it. Outside of that, there's no political intrigue. There's nothing else that could really be taken seriously about your film. At least in my film, she is a major portion of it and contributes to the story moving forward. Knowing that John Wick is protecting her daughter and knowing that John Wick coming and her helping him might be a death sentence for at least her, she still does it. There's at least character growth there. And the fact you say that this is the movie with the worst action, I think this is the movie with the best action in the John Wick franchise. The fact that, we have multiple fight scenes that happen over multiple different, not only geographic areas, but different landscapes, I think adds to the fact that Halle Berry not only worked her ass off for this movie, but her and Keanu Reeves, have great chemistry on scene. The fact that she was the one who trained those dogs. The fact that she put forth the effort and energy to actually be a character, not just a side character, but a character in a film, even though she gets so little screen time, does more to progress this story and shows why she is a great actress and knows when to take a step back. This is why John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum is the best Halle Berry movie of the 2010s.
All right. With that said, we're going to go ahead and get into the 4-minute open discussion. The timer will start when the first competitor speaks.
Halle Berry's character in John Wick 3 could have been anybody. You know what? Who couldn't have been anybody?
Storm could have definitely been anybody.
No, she couldn't have.
Alexandra Shipp did a better job in every X-Men movie she's been in than Halle Berry has. So don't give me that.
That's a different side. That's a younger character. Everybody loves.
It's literally called Days of Future Past.
Storm comes in, and you know what?
Storm has absolutely nothing to do with it. You chose a good movie that Halle Berry is a modicum of a portion of. It's not even a major character. It does, though. That's just it. Because what is the best Halle Berry film of the 2010s is the name of the question.
I gotcha. And you know what happens when she
shows up? What you don't have is the best Halle Berry film of the 2010s, though.
People cheer when she shows up in Days of Future Past because they love her as that character.
I mentioned that in my opening. It's because she's a staple. It's not because she's doing anything. She hasn't done anything, and nothing that she does in that movie. She only embodies that character because they hadn't cast anybody else as Storm in that movie yet.
Regardless, she is Storm.
That's not a regardless. That's a major point.
That's who you think of as that character. People might not even know that Halle Berry's in John Wick Chapter 3 because they watched John Wick Chapter 3 for the action scenes, for Keanu Reeves, for all the stuff like that. The dogs are more.
Please never try to besmirch an actor, especially an actor of well-renowned like Halle Berry. We all know who Halle Berry is. You can tell her off of Jump. You could tell that she was in Kingsman: The Golden Circle. You could tell that she was in John Wick Chapter 3. Don't ever sit there and try to say that, you could barely tell that was Halle Berry. You could definitely tell that was Halle Berry. And it's one of the things that not only critics mentioned, but it's one of the things that audience members mentioned as well. Oh, they loved her there. Whereas, you know what? I'll bring it up. Rotten Tomatoes has straight up said, Halle Berry was in this movie, I guess.
Yeah. I guess she was kind of in that movie, but
she was kind of in that movie for all of 5 minutes. Your movie barely contains the actress, whereas my movie contains the actress, has her moving the story forward, has her performing action scenes. It does, though.
She's
though.
In yours as well. And
she's in my movie for more. She's in my movie for almost a third of it.
The only thing people want to see.
She's in your movie for 5 minutes.
Listen. The only thing that people want to see when they see a John Wick movie is John Wick fighting people. That's all.
What you want to see versus what everybody else wants to see is completely different, and that's an irrelevant argument that you're making.
What people want to see when they come is
what you're making is an irrelevant argument right now.
I mean, anything's irrelevant if you just say it. But when people come in and they see Storm show up in that movie, they get so excited. Regardless, Halle Berry's great in both movies, but regardless, mine is just the better film. It has more to say. It has more things going on. You have Michael Fassbender showing up and just giving a great performance as Magneto. And, you go into the past and you have all of
your movie didn't even do mutant racism well. Your movie is a bad, overhanded, ham-fisted attempt at creating the storylines of what the X-Men used to be. The Days of Future Past is not this fucking phenomenal thing. As a matter of fact, the best cut of your movie wasn't even released in theaters. And the best cut of the movie takes Halle Berry out of it more. That's why the Rogue cut is the better version of your film.
I'm sure both cuts are great because it's just
both cuts aren't great
of a movie. Yeah, exactly.
That's just it. Both cuts aren't great. The one without Halle Berry in it the most is the better version.
It is the best ones because it is something that recontextualizes this franchise into something new that progresses the whole franchise.
No, it doesn't. It just beats the same point over and over and over again.
That is just the same thing over and over and over.
You can't try to take my point and point it right at me. Look at yours. Mutant Power now works better in X3.
Time. All right. We're going to go ahead and go into the final minute of the round. With that said, Chad, you are up first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Like I said, the original John Wick came out. It had a really good concept and a lot of really great action, and it just keeps going on from there. And then it keeps getting thinner and thinner as the films go along. Nobody cares about the story of that movie. Nobody cares about, Halle Berry being in that movie. Anybody could have been in that movie, and it would have been just fine. People forget about all the side characters of those movies all the time. They just want to see Keanu Reeves kick some ass. With my movie, X-Men Days of Future Past, it recontextualized everything. It cemented X-Men as a good franchise again, and it skyrocketed to go forward. And then we got Logan. Then we got other great things. But Days of Future Past started that. It's what brought Logan or Wolverine back to being really great. And you know what happens when people see Halle Berry as Storm? They cheer. They get so excited. Yeah, because of the foundation of stuff that she built in the beginning, but also because of just being and embodying that character so great. You're the one that's trying to minimize her role as Storm by saying other people are better. She's fantastic in
that. Time. All right, Jay, you have the final minute. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I love the fact that my opponent just straight up jumped over the fact that X-Men Apocalypse also exists in this exact same franchise, which brought it down, and they had to bring Logan in. The best cut of your movie is the rogue cut, which takes Halle Berry out of it. She only has 2 scenes in it, whereas in the original Days of Future Past, she has 6 scenes. So what they did was minimalize her because she's just there to draw an audience. That doesn't make your movie good. Your movie is ham-fisted, whereas at least John Wick Chapter 3 draws a story from the beginning to the end, and this man is trying to find peace. If you are ready for, if you want peace, you must be ready for war. It's what Parabellum means. John Wick does it. John Wick does it with the help of Halle Berry. Halle Berry shows up, she puts in the fucking work, and she creates a character that may or may not be memorable, but at least helps move the story forward. And that's why it's the best Halle Berry film, because she's there to help the movie move forward.
And time. All right. Guys, it's been an excellent match, but I am going to put you guys in the back because at this point it is down to the judges. So I will go ahead and bring them into the stream. Now, as I said, I made this reference at the very start of the round, and I will make it here once again. Judges, you guys are voting based on which argument in and of itself swayed you more. There is no one way to debate the question, so that's simply of the approach that they took and the argument they made, who did sway you more to what is the better film. The only other thing here to fact check is in terms of screen time. I couldn't find how long Halle Berry is in John Wick Chapter 3 offhand. No YouTube videos contain the entire length of that sequence, just segments, and most people don't keep track of specific characters in specific films. However, because X-Men Days of Future Past is a comic book film, I was able to find that breakdown. All in all, Halle Berry does have, where's the specific number here? It is 2 minutes and 15 seconds of total screen time that is obviously chunked up and segmented over multiple scenes in the film, is where she is a part of a large group. Now, again, how much the actress was in the film was not a prerequisite of the question. It is simply if the competitors debated it back and forth enough that it swayed you one way or the other. The other fact check was, as far as I could find, the row cut does not remove any scenes. Now, again, that was a last minute thing that was brought up, so my research may not be totally accurate. But as far as I could find, it did not remove any scenes from the film. It just added 17 minutes of footage, most of which was in the second half related to a plot line with the character Rogue, portrayed by Anna Paquin. Halle Berry is not in most of those scenes, but I don't believe it removed anything. With that said, though, Malcolm, I will go up to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Yeah, this is tough for me because this was a very close match, but ultimately I decided to go with Jay on this because I think the points he was bringing up about how in John Wick Parabellum, like Halle Berry was really important to the plot, and how you could have just taken her out of Days of Future Past and just it wouldn't have added or taken away anything from it, I think was what stuck with me on that.
All right, and then Richie, over to you.
Yeah, look, great job to both guys. It was it was one of the best matches I've judged since I've been doing this. But I think, I think Jay's got it for me. I think he, had good points about Halle Berry's character, like moving the plot forward, and just how she's integral to the overall story. Where I think whereas Halle Berry's Storm in Ace of Pass is kind of almost a non-factor. So I went with Jay, but good job for both guys.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and put the judges in the back because your winner with a final score of 3-2 is the Arsonist, Jay Burnz. That edit's not going to be as clean as normal because we are speeding this up. Jay's got somewhere to be, so I'm going to make this rapid. Jay, it was a hell of a match, a hell of a back and forth. Both of you guys did an excellent job tonight, but you do come out with the victory. What are your thoughts on the match?
I might have had a little bit to say after round 2. That's fine. It is what it is. I won round 1. I'm fine. I got what I wanted. I got the W. Didn't know if it would actually happen. Chad made an incredible argument in a small amount of time, and I know how much Chad likes to prepare. I do better when I don't necessarily have to prepare. So I know that he's fighting off of the back foot when it comes on that. Actually, fighting off of the front foot when it comes on that. He's punching up when he has to do that. Chad, this was amazing. I love you, brother. This was so much fun. You know my issue with a lot of the fucking questions. I've already brought it up off screen. I'll always bring it up every time I can because I am Tom Petty in the Heartbreakers. I am Pet and Petty if I was a Cartoon Network show. And I am Petty LaBelle. But no, I had a blast. This was so much fun. I hate the fact that I have to cut this short because I do have to be somewhere else. I didn't know that this would take this long. I kind of thought that after round 4, I was cooked, but I was glad that I was able to channel that anger and be able to actually make something that was able to stand the barrage and the tirade that is the individual who prepares by far the most that I have ever seen an individual prepare. Chad, I want you to look me right in my eyes right now. Look me in the windows of my soul. You did fucking amazing. This has been so much fun, and I don't think that I have ever been more worried about debating an individual ever. And I know that one of the people that I have debated is right fucking there, and he's looking at me right now. This has been so much fun, dude. I appreciate you for everything it is that you do. I appreciate you for bringing out the best and the worst in me, and I can't wait to debate you again. And I can't wait to move forward. I really can't. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate everybody for being here. I appreciate the judges. I appreciate the question writer and Malcolm for writing a singular fucking question, apparently. So yeah, because our question writer likes to be lazy sometimes. So
100%. With that though, Jay, we're going to go ahead and let you go. You got a Full Metal Classic to get to. We're recording this on a Thursday. But with that said, congratulations. I'm not going to bother asking you about it, but just so you know, you will be playing the winner of Austin Howell versus Alan Shepard. That match will upload tomorrow, so you will find out the winner. I think one of those excites him. But we're going to go ahead and put him in the back. Jay, have a great night, man. And we will bring in his opponent. And yeah, Chad, I'm going to echo the sentiments that Jay had. It was an incredible match. You guys had an incredible back and forth. This is absolutely a situation where you have two passionate people who really know how to get into it, who come from completely different points of view in terms of how to enter the debate realm. And unfortunately, it didn't work out for you today, and this is the end of your season. But you've had an incredible run over the last year and a bit. So just overall, what are your thoughts? And you are muted.
Sorry. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I didn't know exactly how to approach Jay. Like you said, I prepped, I prepared. I didn't exactly agree with a lot of the judging, but it's hard to judge. And when you have two people kind of going at it, like people take things different ways. I thought I had round 1 like easily. And then I was like, oh, I didn't? Okay. And then he thought he had round 2, and I thought he might have round 2 as well. And I thought I might have round 4 on him, but I just wasn't sure because the judging was kind of like all over the place. It sounded like we were really going at it and both doing a really great job. Jay was tough. Jay was kind of like debating Austin. So I'm kind of glad that I don't have to go and potentially face Austin if he's able to beat who'd you say, Alan?
Alan.
But it is what it is. I'm upset that I'm not going to be able to continue on because I think I do really well at this, but I'm also excited for a little bit of a break. And I can actually, watch more movies and just like think about things. And then when I return, maybe I can return in a big way. But, for now, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Jay did a really great job, and it's just really hard to go up against someone like that when our styles are so different. So
Absolutely, man. And look, there's obviously, as I always say to people, this is a game of opinions, right? You are 2 people entering with opinions that you are passionate about. You are debating for 3 people who are coming in with obviously their own opinions, and they're doing the best to push them out of their head, and then they're having to listen to your opinions and see which one hits them more. So it's a very difficult thing to say who was right and who wasn't. At the end of the day, we just have winners and losers, and unfortunately you're on the losing end. But you had a winning year overall, as all the things that we can throw out there. I mean, Austin, in terms of like first match debuts, Austin may have been the biggest impact player off just one match. The way that he came in, the bravado that he had, the approach that he had, you shut that down very quickly. You took him out, and you moved on further into that tournament. You took on Joe in your first run. That was your first loss. And again, at that point, he was still the undefeated former champion. So that's a tough loss to take in your first round of matches. You then came back. You made it to a number 1 contenders match. You took on Sean Hunter, who got all the praise for being the first rookie to make it to a tournament final in our first round of tournaments. You knocked him, or you didn't. You beat him to make it here. I was going to accuse that. You beat him to make it to a title match. And then you got into that title match against Henry, and you did excellently as well in your first title match, being the first, and at this point, only rookie to make it to a title match this season. Now, a rookie may still win the tournament, but their title match won't be played till next season, and Amaru is not a rookie at this. So you are the only rookie to make it to a title match and play it in their first year. So there is a lot on that end. But with that, I am going to let you go. I'm going to let you take the break before we come back next year. Sir, you've done excellent tonight, and I look forward to seeing you back next year, guys. That is it for Chad for this year, as I go ahead and put him in the back. And yeah, what more could you ask from the first match in a tournament? We're in the final 8. These guys are going to push each other harder than ever as they continue to push towards finishing this up. And yeah, that is going to be it. They did an incredible job tonight. Congratulations to Jay Burnz for taking the victory. Congratulations to Chad on an incredible performance and an incredible season. It's tough to take a loss at this point and know that you're not going to be back for a bit, but I think he should feel proud of himself that he ended with so many wins and so many great wins at the end of this all. I want to say thank you to my judges, Malcolm, Richie, and Jake, for being here. Thank you guys for sitting in and listening to this match, because God knows I didn't want to. So you guys took the bullet instead. Thank you to everybody watching. Please be sure to rate the video, comment, subscribe, give me your opinions on everything that we had here tonight. As I said, tomorrow the next match in our tournament will go up. You'll get to see Austin Howe take on Alan Shepard. The winner of that match will play Jay in the next round, and either of those is sure to be a weird as fuck match, because they both take totally different approaches as well, and one of them playing Jay is going to be a whole nother nightmare. But guys, that is it. On behalf of everybody here at the Movie Battleground, my name is Aaron Knoll, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.